Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Pitchside Podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I remind you, before everything, of course, to like, comment, share this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, of course, to enable notifications to receive more updates of this podcast and every other video on this channel. Follow us on social media, of course, at PSP on Twitter, PitchsidePod on Instagram, and listen to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you can listen from. Let's start straight away, of course. Let's start with the Premier League. So it was a pretty eventful Wednesday as well in the Premier League, just like on Tuesday. Plenty of action across the board in the Premier League. In the Bramall Lane, in the Elland Road, Leeds United managed to overturn the deficit from 1-0 down to beating Newcastle 5-2. It was a brilliant game of football for Leeds United. Pretty much they dominated expectedly against a Newcastle side that usually under Steve Bruce seems to be only about defending, really. They were pretty efficient, I think, as usual. Newcastle had only 4 shots the whole game, 2 goals, really. That's what it was all about. 25 shots for Leeds United it was, and 10 on target, including 5 goals, of course. It's an important victory for Leeds United. I think they don't get these kind of wins a lot. They don't get wins a lot, let alone these kind of wins. I mean, the 5-2s, and it's going to be really, really important for them. Probably, I mean, is this the time that Leeds get the season underway, really, and start, performing stronger in the Premier League, because we expected them to take it by storm. We expected them to play really well since the first day. They did, to be fair, have a first incredible game against Liverpool at Anfield, and they seemed to fade a little bit away from the lights as the season went on. And now, hopefully with this incredible victory, they'll get themselves back on track and right on track. In the Emirates, Arsenal finally scored, finally got a point. I mean, how the mighty have fallen. I mean, we were talking about a side that the worst thing that they can do a couple of years ago is like being in the Champions League, being just in the Champions League, like being 4th or 5th in the table. That is the worst that Arsenal could have done under Arsene Wenger. I mean, every Arsenal fan at the moment is going to be taking that in a flash and taking that quickly instead of what is happening now to his club. And a draw finally at Anfield, at the Emirates. It was a bad game. It was another bad game for Arsenal. Southampton clearly dominated the ball. They clearly were the better side. Brilliant goal from their own man, former Arsenal, Theo Walcott, scoring in the to win in the 18th minute, of course. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang scores. He finally equalises for Arsenal, really, after he redeemed himself. Redeemed a point for his side after scoring against them, against their own net, of course, against Burnley last time out. It was horrendous. Of course, red card drama continues as Gabriel is the one sent off for Arsenal this time. I mean, I think there's a couple of disciplinary problems probably that they should get rid of, as far as I'm concerned. Arsenal, really, if they want to talk about improving their season in any way, really. A point against the Southampton side that probably Southampton came out the worst because of this point, really, considering how Arsenal were such a state. Really, you'd expect Southampton to really be better and probably kill the game when they should have killed the game. They had chances, of course. Arsenal were as shambolic as usual, but Southampton were not effective enough to kill the game against Arsenal, so they lose 2 points. In my opinion, it's the loss of Southampton more than the gain of Arsenal. So 1 point for Southampton, but that point moves them up to 3rd on the table, of course, 3rd above Leicester City. Leicester City, who lost against Everton 2-0 at their own stadium at the King Power. We all thought, okay, fine, Leicester City, after a couple of bad results, admittedly, for Leicester in the last couple of weeks, before this game, losing, of course, the Fulham, losing to Liverpool. Everybody expected, well, with this, after they defeated Sheffield, of course, they defeated Brighton, everybody expected, well, Leicester season is back on track. It seems not. Everton, again, picking another important victory, and once again in a game that they weren't dominated. Probably it looks like they changed their momentum a little bit. They changed their motto under Carlo Ancelotti in the last couple of games. It became just, defend properly and just catch Leicester and catch oppositions pretty much on the counters or on the mistakes that they do in the back or anything like that. Richarlison opens the scoring in the 21st minute before Mason Holgate added in the 72nd minute, and that is a lot for Everton against Leicester City, who tried to guarantee a win in this one, but they couldn't do it. Despite their possession, despite the attempts that they had, really. But it was Everton who were the most dangerous for as less chances that they had. And of course, they scored 2 goals to show for it, and they got the 3 points. Important 3 points for Everton, really, to keep them 5th in 23 points, get them back, really, to somewhere close to the top where they were earlier on in the season. That means that Chelsea, who lost to Wolves, dropped to 6 now. It's crazy. The Premier League table looks really all sorts of crazy at the moment. A goalless draw between Fulham and Brighton. Nothing really to register in that game. It is, looking from its stats, it's as dull as it looks. Nothing. I mean, it was a draw in every sense of the word. It was really tight. It was really even from both sides. No side would get the 3 points, and both share the spoils. For Fulham, it is meaning that they stay at 17th with 9 points, just above relegation 3, as Brighton are right above them as well with 11 points. And West Ham drawing against Crystal Palace, of course, 1-1 as well. Pretty, decent draw if you are West Ham. Maybe it sucks really because they played against a 10-man Crystal Palace for the last 20 minutes or so, but they couldn't really do it after Christian Benteke got sent off. But they couldn't really manage a second goal. By the way, check out Sebastian Haller's scissors kick. It's incredible. Bicycle kick, actually, not scissor kick. Bicycle kick from Sebastian Haller. It was crazy, insane. After the cross from Vladimir as a Kufal, it's incredible. I mean, Christian Benteke scored for Crystal Palace, of course, but the goal from Sebastian Haller is just a beauty to watch, really. It's incredible anyway. And in the big game, it was Liverpool facing Tottenham at Anfield to determine who's going to be going top of the table. And this was, I think, as I mentioned in the review yesterday, it was as expected, really. It went down the way everybody expected. Liverpool were playing high. Tottenham parked the bus for the first half, really. They didn't do much. They tried to defend. And it wasn't like good defending. I'm going to be weird here. I'm going to say that it wasn't good defending from Tottenham, unlike the other games. Because in the other games, like for example the games against Arsenal or against Manchester City, where they just parked the bus and just, being compact in their own zone and own defence, they gave the other clubs the possession. They gave Man City the possession. They gave Arsenal the possession to do a lot with it, but they couldn't. As for Liverpool, they gave them the possession, but Liverpool were far more dangerous than what they should. They were far more penetrative than any of those other teams that I mentioned. And it felt like Liverpool could have scored every time they're on the ball. It felt like Mo Salah had a couple of chances to score himself and wasn't really lucky. Mane had a couple of penetrations, really good crosses, chances for Firmino. Lloris was pulled to do more saves than usual, really. And that is just testament to just what I said, that it wasn't exactly great defending from Tottenham as much as it was not pure luck, but lack of efficiency from Liverpool. That's what I'm going to say. Mo Salah scored in the 26th minute, of course, a shot deflection of one of the defenders, I think it was Dyer, to open the scoring. But as Liverpool were searching and surging for the second goal against Tottenham, of course, They get caught on the counter, really. Heung-min Son, brilliant pass, by the way, from Giovanni Lo Celso. Heung-min Son finds the space that he always loves behind the centre halves. And, simple finish, very calm and cool, gets it past Alisson in the 33rd minute to score. After that equaliser, probably that's when Tottenham got into the game a little bit, got their feet on the ground firmly, and started playing their game, probably started frustrating Liverpool a little bit until the end of the first half. VAR deemed the goal onside for Heung-min Son by the tightest of margin. The line was used, really. No complaints, whatever should be used, really, but again, VAR decides another decision against Liverpool by pretty much, the millimeters of difference anyway. The first half ended 1-1, I think undeservedly, and in a draw, really, because Liverpool were clearly the better side. It was only one shot for Tottenham that was the undoing of Liverpool in the first half. Practically the only real mistake for Liverpool's defence for Reece Williams in the first half, because in the second half Tottenham started strong. The first 10 minutes they were really attacking the ball. They were really doing incredibly well, getting a couple of chances. Harry Kane had a chance. Steven Bergwijn had two clear-cut chances. First one head-to-head, he sides the ball away, and then he comes head-to-head with Alisson and hits the post at 64th minute. They had a first great quarter of an hour to 20 minutes, Tottenham, and then Jose Mourinho decided to regress, really decided to change what he's doing, really. By the end of the game, he made, quite the clear defensive change with Sergio Reguilón coming in for Steven Bergwijn and Dele Alli coming for Heung-min Son later on, thinking that they got the draw and everything is fine. But it wasn't to be, because Roberto Firmino came in from the corner and scored a brilliant header to gain the 3 points for Liverpool, snatched the 3 points and snatched the top of the table for Liverpool in a game that obviously Mourinho was happy to share the spoils in until the very last moment. Deserved victory for Liverpool overall. Great performance from them at Anfield once again. They proved that they still are the leaders in the title race in the Premier League. Tottenham, not a bad game, really, necessarily. That's the standard of Liverpool's, style of play at the moment. Not pretty, not pleasing, not enjoyable, but still, in most of the times, it is effective. But it wasn't against the Liverpool side that knew probably the Achilles heel of Tottenham, set-piece defending, and they scored from it. This is going to mean, of course, that Liverpool are top of the table with 28 points, 25 points for Tottenham, with second Southampton 24, as well as Leicester City. Everton 23 points at 5th, Chelsea 22, 21 for West Ham, really close getting there, West Ham, Man City, Man United and Wolves with 20 points, 18 for Aston Villa before today's game against West Brom. Against Burnley. Crystal Palace with 18, 17 to Leeds, Newcastle, Arsenal at 15th with 14, 11 to Brighton at 16, 9 to Fulham at 17th, and Burnley, West Brom and Sheffield are the relegation battlers. Of course, the fixture continues today with Aston Villa facing Burnley, as I mentioned, and Sheffield United hosting Manchester United. Moving on. And in the Bundesliga, of course, 5 matches were played yesterday. It was all about the top table action, really, in the Bundesliga. But before that, Schalke lost again to Freiburg. They failed once again to make it out of their slump, really, to make it out of 27 games without win in the Bundesliga. Really, it is a long and very poor run for Schalke. All the way down at the moment. It looks like they're certain to be relegated. It not just that looks, it pretty much it is, because, at this stage of the season, 4 points from 12 games, it really seems destined and set in stone that Schalke are going to be going down against the Freiburg side that is slightly picking up steam, and slowly but surely picking up steam and going all the way up in the table now. With our 11s, it was easy win, I think, for Freiburg, really, despite Schalke trying actually to have a little bit of go at it, trying to win the game, trying to do something significant, but Freiburg were much more effective, much more dangerous on the count. Of course, Zalai with the brace for the win of Freiburg in that game. Arminia Bielefeld losing at home to Augsburg, of course, another victory for Augsburg, who are also secretly making quite the season. They are 9th at the moment in the table, 16 points, not away really from the European spots. They could mount some challenge this season. Could they do it, really, the Bavarian side? It is possible. It is really doable, I would say. Then, of course, we have the triple headers of the top of the table. I'm going to get to one in the end because I'm going to be talking about the preview, probably an early preview sorts of the game against Bayern Leverkusen. Bayern Leverkusen dispatched of Köln pretty quickly, really didn't have a lot to worry about. By 9 minutes, they were 2-0 up against Köln. By 15 minutes in the second half, they were 4-0 up. Game dusted, game done, really didn't need to do much, really. Florian Wirtz is as incredible as usual, one of the brilliant prospect in the Bundesliga, really dispatching of Hoffenheim 4-1, and now dispatching of Köln 4-0. Mitchell Weiser, brilliant volley for the first goal. Then Moussa Diaby, brilliant solo goal for the second one. The third goal from Patrick Schick, incredible counter as well. Moussa Diaby with an incredible assist, and Patrick Schick with the slenderest of finishes into the top corner. And of course, Florian Wirtz, as I mentioned, with the fourth goal by assist of Leon Bailey. He's one heck of a prospect, Florian Wirtz. He's doing really well at the moment for Bayern Leverkusen. I've been impressed with that guy since he scored against Bayern last time out, last season, of course, in that 4-2 result is incredible, and the sky is the limit for him. 70-year-old, he's one of the most promising youngsters in the Bundesliga at the moment. He looks really set for something big with Bayer Leverkusen, and he's already one of their first teamers and already one of the players that Peter Bosz relies upon a lot at the moment in the first team, not just in terms of the squad as a whole. The fact that he wasn't substituted in all the 5 changes, Peter Bosz didn't think of substituting him, is just a very big sign of how much he trusts him. I mean, maybe because of the game was pretty easy, but also because of how much he trusts the project and trusts the process of the young players being well. And Florian Wirtz is going to be quite something, really, mark my words. Just watch how this player is going to evolve over the next couple of years. That means, of course, for Borussia Mönchengladbach, for Bayer Leverkusen, that they are clear on the top of the table with 28 points ahead, with 1 point of both Bayern Munich, of Leipzig, the latter of which managed a hard 1-0 victory away to Hoffenheim, really the former side of Julian Nagelsmann, and expectedly it was hard for Julian Nagelsmann really to make wave in this game. It was pretty tight, pretty close, I would add. Leipzig had chances, Hoffenheim had chances as well. But of course, the only difference was the clinical opportunity that came to Yusuf Poulsen in the second half, of course. The assist from Marcel Sabitzer in the 60th minute, scoring the only goal of the game that keeps Leipzig in the top of the table, and they will have a big chance, of course, to get that top of the table spot depending on the result of Bayern Munich versus Bayern Leverkusen on the Saturday. And speaking of Bayern, they had the game against Wolfsburg, of course. It was a big test, I think. It's a big test considering that Wolfsburg this season have been really good, and they have been very well organised, doing incredibly well as far as the season, undefeated they entered this game until now with 5 victories and 6 draws. Bayern Munich started in a weird way. I mean, the fact that they had Benjamin Pavard, they had Bouna Sarr on the bench, and they had Chris Richards on the bench, and the fact is, it was weird from Flick to choose to start with Zerler as a right back. It was really weird. I mean, sometimes it's just not understandable why you would start with Zerler as a right back. I mean, I thought that Pavard, Bounissar had both late injuries before the game or something, but they didn't. Zerler started as a right back, and it showed, of course, and he paid the big price for it. Wolfsburg starting strong again, another woozy start for Bayern Munich after the game against Union Berlin. It seems like a trend at the moment for Bayern that they enter the first 5 to 10 minutes not starting really well, not defending well in the first 10 minutes, pretty much losing their shape in those first 10 minutes, and again they get caught playing down from the wings, of course. Zerler, a cross goes behind him, and Leroy Sané in the box was a stupid touch, that's what I would say. A stupid touch, setting up the easy opportunity, of course, for Kevin Mbabu to assist Maximilian Philipp. If you don't remember that guy, really, he was at Dortmund a couple of years ago, and he was one of the most promising teenagers ever in the Bundesliga, really. He was bought for a lot of money, relatively, from Borussia Dortmund, but they couldn't he couldn't make up for his name, he couldn't make up for his price tag, really, and he failed horribly, and he hovered around a couple of teams in the Bundesliga before now, seemingly find himself in a good position with VfL Wolfsburg. After that goal, of course, it was scramble time for Bayern, I would say. This became a late trend for Hansi Flick, really. They concede a goal to get going in this game. I mean, Bayern are a machine in that they need to get a little bit of momentum, get a bit of a steam before they get actually going in the game. But once they get going, it's really incredible. Kingsley Coman, who started on the right hand side for some reason, was moved up to left and switched up with Sané, and that, I think, proved very vital for Kingsley Coman, allowing him to play in the spaces that he liked, to dribble the way that he liked, to put crosses the way that he liked. And speaking of one of those crosses, of course, he put a delicious cross at the far post for Robert Lewandowski, making it 1-all right at the death before half-time. Of course, it was crucial that they scored before the end of the first half, really, because if they didn't, probably it would have been a harder game entering the second half. It would give Wolfsburg a little bit of extra confidence. But in the first 5 minutes of the second half, Robert Lewandowski again comes in and capitalizing on a defensive calamitous display from Wolfsburg in terms of positioning. He capitalizes, he gets his second goal, 24th goal actually, against Wolfsburg. He seems to love scoring against that opposition, really. And after that, it was a pretty decent game for Wolfsburg, I would say. It was a pretty, tight, pretty balanced game. They had their chances, but they couldn't capitalize, of course. Bayern Munich, some defensive mistakes in the high line. Usually they do it, but Neuer pulled a couple of saves as well. Wolfsburg were not exactly effective. They couldn't really make up for the serious opportunities that they had, really, in the second half. Bayern couldn't add a third to make it more comfortable for them. In the end, it was more hard than even expected. I expected a hard game, obviously, because of Wolfsburg and how the season has been going. But Bayern Munich's, proved that it was harder than it looks, and they needed some serious changes in momentum to make it 2-1 and win. But they keep themselves again close to Bayern Leverkusen at the table. They are 1 point behind them, really. It is going to be one heck of a crucial game between those two sides on Saturday, of course. But you have also to think Bayern Munich may be in a bit of a more dangerous game against Leverkusen than they actually think, because Leverkusen are so quick at the moment in the transition. They're so good at getting behind the lines and getting behind the spaces that is going to be a nightmare to defend. If you don't get the likes of Pavard and Davis and you don't star those two against Bayern Leverkusen, pretty much you have to know that it is going to be, a nightmare of a scenario for you. And Bayern cannot afford a woozy start against Leverkusen on Saturday, because if that happens, they will be in serious trouble. So that ends it for round 12 of the Bundesliga. As we mentioned, Bayern Leverkusen are top of the table, 28 points, 27 points for both Bayern and Leipzig. Borussia Dortmund with 22 points, pretty far, but still early, I think, to judge. Wolfsburg, 21 points at 5th, 6th for Union Berlin, 18 points for Stuttgart, 18 points as well with Borussia Mönchengladbach. Augsburg 16, 14 points for both Frankfurt and Freiburg, 13 for Hertha Berlin, 12 for Hoffenheim, 11 for Werder Bremen, 10 for Köln, and it is Arminia Bielefeld, 7 Mainz and Schalke with 6 points and 4 points respectively at the relegation zone. Moving on to SerieA. And in Italy, it was, of course, 7 games were played yesterday, and the opener of those games were Juventus versus Atalanta, a draw, 1-1. Again, another unconvincing performance for Juventus, a draw that probably would serve Atalanta well, considering the problems that they have in the last couple of weeks, really. The reported spat between Papu Gomez and Gianpiero Gasperini. Really, Gomez threatening to leave the club, is pretty much going to leave the club in January unless something miraculous happens and they convince him to stay at the club, really. Again, Baylor, unexperienced, still learning the trade, really failed to have a proper good shape to his game at the moment with Juventus. Really, he started with what seemed like a 4-4-2, but it transforms, of course, to a 3-5-2 when they are on the attack, with Cuadrado on the right hand side, Danilo on the left, Bonucci elect starting in the centre of the defence. In the midfield was Weston McKennie, Arthur, Bentancur, and Federico Chiesa, with Morata and Ronaldo up front. And the midfield of Juventus, for a weird reason, were outdone really by Atalanta in the first 20-25 minutes. They lost a lot of the ball in the midfield. Atalanta worked tirelessly to wrestle them pretty much off the ball. A lot of giveaways from Juventus midfielders. Atalanta were more dangerous. They pulled a couple of saves brilliantly out of Chesney. Atalanta had lots of shots, lots of chances in the first 25 minutes or so before Juventus, of course, snatched the first goal by Federico Chiesa. Ironically, from a giveaway from Atalanta's midfielders, really conceding the first goal from Federico Chiesa in his 29th minute. Brilliant finish, by the way, twisting past the players and blasting one into the top corner of Piero Gallini for a 1-0 lead. After that, Juventus regressed again, ending the first half really on a whimper. They played badly, really. Morata missing a big chance before the goal, actually, to score it. I mean, he tried to backheel the ball when he should have simply tapped it in for some reason. I think that chance probably got him out of the game. He couldn't be the same player afterwards. He wasn't in the game. He didn't take a lot of chances. He didn't touch the ball a lot afterwards. Even when he touches it, it's a missed pass from Alvaro Morata. In the second half, Juventus started really better. They tried, they forced a couple of saves out of Golini as well. They put some pressure on the defense of Atalanta, but this game seemingly was set to be, against the run of play, basically, for everyone, as Atalanta, capitalizing on a missed pass, another mistake in the midfield of Juventus. This time it is the substitute Adrien Rabiot, who came in for an injured Arthur in the first half. Rabiot giving the ball away in the midfield, Remo Freuler twisting and turning Bonucci inside out before blasting one on the top of the net, of course off the crossbar and into the net. All that happened after Alejandro Gomez was subbed in for Matteo Pessina. Ironically, Gasperini needed someone like Gomez. It's going to be a shame when he leaves the club in January. If he does, we don't know. Maybe he will not. But if he leaves the club, it's going to be a big shame, losing someone with the magic effect of Papu Gomez, really. After that, it was a pretty balanced game. Both sides tried, really. But of course, the biggest, attempt was for Cristiano Ronaldo. 4 minutes later from that goal for Atalanta, he had a penalty. a contentious penalty, I would say. I mean, in England, it'd probably be called a soft penalty. VAR probably might not check it. I don't think that was too much on it for Federico Chiesa really to get a penalty out of it, but they got a penalty out of it eventually, and Cristiano Ronaldo missed it in a weird event that doesn't happen every time. After that, Atalanta tried, they put on some serious pressure for around 5 minutes. From the 70th to 75th minute, they put some serious pressure under Juventus. They forced other couple of saves out of Chesney, really, and they deserved the 3 points, but they only got away with 1 point. That's what they have, of course. That will move them, or keep them actually, at 8th on the table with 18 points. Still far off the mark this season, but they will take the points as they come, considering the problems that they have. For Juventus, 24 points at 3rd. Now they move ahead of Napoli at the table by virtue, actually, of Napoli losing later on. Fiorentina drawn against Sassuolo, again a surprise side this season. Sassuolo couldn't hold the lead that they had since the 19th minute, and the 35th minute, Fiorentina equalises from the spot to make it 1-1, and that was the lot for that game, really. Genoa forced the draw out of Milan. AC Milan, another hard game, another 2-2 draw, and Genoa really given the big boys 2 back-to-back really tough games to go through for Juventus, and now for AC Milan. Again, a late save for AC Milan that keeps them in the conversation of undefeated, really extends their undefeated streak to 31 at the moment. But for how long are they going to survive, really? Not just without Ibrahimovic, but how long are they going to be surviving in general? This was much tighter than the game against Parma, really, because Genoa actually had some decent amount of chances compared to Parma, really, who were basically economic in terms of creating chances and scoring. Milan, of course, went one. I mean, all the goals coming in the second half of the game. Mattia Destra opening the score for Calabria, equalising 5 minutes later, and then of course Mattia Destra again on the quarter of an hour mark in the second half, scoring the second goal before the save coming in from Pierre Kalulu Ketengua, 20-year-old Frenchman, with his first proper start to the side. Really, he started again against Genoa. He scores in the 83rd minute and saves 1 point for Milan, keeps their streak going, keeps them top of the table in SerieA, of course, ahead of their Inter rivals. Who managed an incredible hard win against Napoli, of course. The penalty from the spot, of course, Romelu Lukaku's penalty was the one difference between Inter and Napoli in a game that was really tight. Napoli had certain opportunities where they looked on top. Antonio Conte, he's a defensive-minded coach. You don't expect him really to attack a lot. Eventually, the penalty was the only difference that defined the game between Inter and Napoli. Big important victory for Inter, of course, considering the results that the other clubs had, and now they are 1 point behind AC Milan in the SerieA table. Of course, that will be really crucial. Probably, will we have a great race? Will it be a Milan, conceived title race? We'll see that, of course, in the next couple of days. Of course, elsewhere in SerieA, Parma drew 0-0 against Cagliari. Spezia squandering a lead later on against Bologna, drawing 2-2, and Sampdoria defeating another surprise package of the season, I would say, in Hellas Verona, defeating them 2-1 away from home. This round finishes with Roma facing Torino on Thursday, of course, today. Later on, Roma will have a chance to move fourth and sneak into the top 4, really, with a victory expected, I would say, against Torino. The game is at home, really, and Torino are in such a bad form. So that's it for the review, of course, and this episode on the podcast. Certainly, I'm going to be talking about the Barcelona Real Sociedad game in a separate video after this episode goes live, of course. That's it for the review. Remember to like, share, comment and subscribe to the channel, of course. Enable notifications to receive all the updates of this podcast and other videos on this channel. Follow us on social media at SerieA on Twitter, PitchsidePod on Instagram. Listen to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcast, or wherever you can listen to it from. Until the next episode, I was your host, the HOD of the PSP, and goodbye.